security is everybody's responsibility. Unless everyone is aware of this, things are very challenging otherwise. The culture should enable being challenged in its DNA. One should not focus on the end result, but if you're able to focus on the process, you are going to end up with a better result. Irrespective of which organization that you come from, what domain, you can actually achieve continuous security. Only thing is you need to take baby steps, but you need to take it continuously.
Hi, I'm Guy Pojarni, CEO and co-founder of Sneak, and you're listening to The Secure Developer, a podcast about security for developers, covering security tools and practices you can and should adopt into your development workflow. It is a part of the Secure Developer community. Check out thesecuredeveloper.com for great talks and content about developer security and to ask questions and share your knowledge. The Secure Developer is brought to you by HeavyBit, a program dedicated to helping startups take their developer products to market. For more information, visit heavybit.com. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning back in to The Secure Developer. Today we have a great guest from Singapore, back in sort of the Asian side of the world. Mohan Yelnadu runs the application security part of Prudential. Mohan, thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure mine.
So, Mohan, before we dig into a whole bunch of sort of topics of conversation, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do, and kind of how you got into security in the first place.
It started with building. I was primarily working at university teaching application development primarily for a variety of postgraduate engineers. And then I joined, a startup company where I actually started from bottom layer and reached the application layer, where I defined kernels, I developed drivers, then I went to the application layer actually, and that's how I started working with mobile applications in the beginning and then on the web application. So I've been a builder first, then I moved to testing, so I became a breaker, I would say, and then eventually I moved into pen testing world where I was kind of a true breaker, And eventually I realized being in pen testing, the sphere of influence is very limited to that application where I was working with. But if I have to make a org-wide impact, I have to move slightly towards the developer side, and that's how I moved into DevSecOps. So now I'm a defender, so builder, breaker, and defender now. Yeah.
No, that's a great journey, actually, because you come from, oftentimes we try to draw analogy in security to the world of quality, and you've literally kind of done that journey, kind of going from assessing quality to assessing security to now building security. And so what is it that you do today? Just tell us a little bit about AppSec, what's your role today?
Okay, so at Prudential, at group level, we have different local business units. And each business unit, because they are based in different countries, there are local regulatory compliances that we need to follow, apart from the regional at group level. So we basically have recently kickstarted the DevSecOps program, and we have deployed 4 primary areas. The software security through SAST, static application security testing, and then we have open source software security, and third area is the container security, and the final is the DAS, the dynamic application security. So we have chosen different tools and working with development teams to onboard their applications, and we have just kickstarted the onboarding process. So eventually we plan to go to different local business units and give them workshops on how to use these tools. And then at the same time, we are parallelly building something called an ecosystem, where because we are very few in number in AppSec team, so we basically plan to create this ecosystem which basically fills the gap between what the developers want and what we can actually support, being small in number. So we are planning to put how to use different tools, what are the frequently asked questions in terms of vulnerabilities, how to fix those vulnerabilities, and then some small 5 to 7 minutes videos about how to use the tools, how to fix those tools in primarily 1 or 2 major technologies. And then eventually the questions come from different areas. We basically try to help them, with some Jira tickets being raised to track and close and guide them.
Got it. So that sounds kind of you're thinking scale. So you're building kind of the AppSec team to build supporting. Like, do you call the team the AppSec group, or is it the DevSecOps? I mean, what's the identity here? How do you call yourself?
Yeah. So we have primarily within AppSec two teams. One is engineering team, another is the operations team. So engineering teams basically does all on the R&D part and the reviews and the latest tools, scripts, and any process improvements. They do it at a limited environment, and then the operations team basically does the rollouts and education and tracking different issues around day-to-day life. Yeah, the BAU activities.
Got it. Yeah. But both of these groups support the engineering teams in doing it, or do you mean the engineering side is the writing code or reviewing code, but really like a lot of it is around working with, it's not about the codes they build, it's about the codes the engineer build and keeping it secure. Is that a safe assessment, or are they actually building solutions and maintaining services? Yeah,
so we in the application security team, we don't develop any applications, but we do have integration code, writing playbooks for automated installation of various scripts, tools, etc. So in a way, we develop that part of integration code, but otherwise, no application that business uses. So that's a complete development activity. So we basically support them.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. You talked about the local businesses, but then it sounds like the initiative, this DevSecOps initiatives, is not local. It's a global initiative led by a local group, and then expanding into the other different sort of Prudential subsidiaries, I guess, or sort of local businesses around the world.
Yeah, that's right. At regional level, we basically have developed the whole concept and set up different tools. At a central level in the cloud, we primarily use Azure Cloud, and then we have different local business units which use this cloud through their own tenant subscriptions. And these development teams actually, primarily the earlier focus was on the infrastructure security, and very less focus was given on the application. Although they were pen testing as part of compliance and other important releases. But AppSec as such was not the priority, basically. So we started, with this DevSecOps programs, more focused attention towards the application security.
And then you build that expertise locally, and then you expand it and permeate it out to others.
Yes, exactly. So we have our extended hands in the local business units through ITSMs, IT security managers. So some of the ITSMs are really very, very good. Some are good in other security areas. So we basically try to balance this out, and we help them build this additional skill set and work with the local development teams actually.
Got it. Cool. I mean, it's always probably like both a blessing and a curse to be the trendsetter, to be the one sort of driving and mobilizing the organization. You get to shape a new future, but you probably have to battle some blockers. Do you find, as you engage, so it sounds like you're in this interesting position where you are, you're thinking ahead, you're thinking about how security needs to look over time, today and over time. And you sort of have these two groups you need to convince or sort of bring along for the journey. On one side, you have the development teams that need to be signed up to this. But on the other side, you also have your peer or other security teams in different regions that need to do it. Do you find people are resistant to this change, or they embrace it? What's your sort of view of the overall?
Yeah, interesting question. Okay, what I've read, what I come across is slightly different. Normally, when I read articles and blogs, and I get a feeling that developers are trying to resist the security part of it, But in here, I found developers do appreciate the importance of security. Only thing is, if it is transparent to them, they love it because that's not slowing down the process to production. But if it is slowing down, they want to find better ways to manage this. And I've read, in other stories that people try to bypass. So somehow I don't see that behavior here. So in a way, I would say I'm lucky. But in general, developers do understand, the importance of deploying secure software. But sometimes the business, timelines basically to take their products to market forces them to, kind of do it as quickly as possible. But that time you have to balance out, how much you can put in production and how much security in depth that you can reach. So sometimes it can go in a tricky way, I would say. But again, it's not the developer's fault. It's basically the whole ecosystem around that is pushing them, to deliver faster. But as a AppSec consultant, my job is basically to simplify this friction of taking quicker and doing it securely. So my job is basically to simplify this, and DevSecOps program basically tries to address this. So if I'm able to give the developers feedback early in the life cycle and a constant and a transparent one, so these three things, if I'm able to give through DevSecOps program, I think developers would love to embrace security than have a different feeling that we are not enablers but blockers, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Spoken like a true partner. I think really at the end of the day, exactly. It all starts with people, and I think probably the worst way to approach it is with an adversarial. It's us versus them. And really you have to understand the context of the developer, like they're being demanded to deliver function and speed and the likes, and you need to roll with that, right? You need to adapt to their surrounding. So maybe let's get a little bit deeper into the details. So how is it that you engage with the developers? I mean, I know there's like security champion programs. You mentioned a little bit about automations. How do you work your team with the dev side?
Yeah, so there are multiple areas in which we need to focus when it comes to onboarding developers to do secure development. One is definitely the tools, and early feedback. So if you have automated pipelines through whatever orchestration tool or platform that you use, early feedback gives them the sense of where they stand in terms of, the application security posture. But at the same time, that is not enough, So you need to have a process around supporting them, as you rightly said, being partners actually. So that's where, we need to build a good relationship with across different development teams from different regions. And that's what I'm trying to target. But main challenge in this process is basically the people. If we had enough number of AppSec folks in the team, it actually helps building that relationship faster, and we can deliver the requests earlier. But having said that, we know there are challenges in terms of getting good number of people in the AppSec domain. We need to go for the third option, basically the ecosystem. So the first tool, second the processes, and then third part is the ecosystem. That's how I prefer to build that whole relationship. And ecosystem basically helps to progress without the AppSec consultants' availability, because that's the scarce resource these days. So since we have hundreds of developers spread across different local business units, building ecosystem basically helps them reach their destination faster. Say, for example, look at static application security testing tools. Take any tool, in fact. I have, designed and developed part of one of the leading secure code analysis tool compiler. And I know that domain quite closely. So I know, that this domain, although it is there since 3 decades or more, but the inherent of, the core problem of this code analysis, either for quality or for security, is that the false positives. Because you cannot develop models, to understand the technology, because there's a variety of ways in which a developer can use the technology to deliver business value. So in such cases, false positive is an obvious byproduct, and more the number of false positives, less the faith the developers have in their tools, So it's very important to, iron out this part very quickly and in a smooth manner, So as part of the ecosystem, we plan to build a list of sure 100% false positive list coming from a particular application for a particular tool. And then we're going to say, hey, look at your result and look at this table. If you see these issues in your application, straight away go ahead and mark those as false positives. You don't have to worry about fixing it. We will not break your build in any case. So that's one level of resolving or reducing the number of issues to be resolved. Second way is basically sometimes there are false positives with a peculiar situation. For example, there's a CVE reported on a library, for example, open source library, and then there's a caveat saying that, hey, if you use this API in this particular library, then only this CVE is applicable, otherwise you're not. So if I have a dependency and then there is a transitive dependency on it, and if I'm not using this API, from that transitive dependency, I am not required to fix this issue. Basically, I'm not vulnerable either. So in such a case, we need to give that confidence to the development teams that, hey, we have analyzed this CVE, this doesn't apply to you, don't worry on this. But they, at the same time, because it's a vast organization, there will be another team which would be affected by the same CVE, but they are vulnerable or their application is vulnerable. So we need to balance this out, and this has to be done on a quick basis, because the more longer you take time to resolve this clarification, you are actually going away from the development teams, So this is very, very crucial, this quick analysis for any new CVE, because if imagine this, the criticality, the severity of this vulnerability is on the higher side, you have to just leave aside everything and then focus on this analysis and clarify to the both types of development teams. Hey, for you this doesn't apply, for you it is applicable, you better fix it. Or you have some other compensating control in place like block rule or some kind of monitoring and so on.
Right, another mitigation technique. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I mean by creating ecosystem around them so that there's less and less friction basically.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of conversations in the security kind of world today that goes from maybe a perfectionist perspective that says, well, I want to report and I want to tell you developers about all the problems and you should fix all the problems, to being much more diligent, understanding that there's only so much time and so much attention that you can demand of developers, for security issues, and you have to use that time wisely.
Absolutely.
And ensure that you really invest in using their time well, right? And in avoiding noise. So sounds like a really good thinking.
Yeah, the extension of DevSecOps program, is through some kind of mechanism where they get feedback. At the same time, there is something which controls the whole delivery. To ensure there is security in production, is through build breaker program. So build breaker programs, I think you touched upon that part. It has to be implemented in a manner in which it is pragmatic. So every tool would give different types of vulnerabilities. Like some may give like critical, high, medium, low. Mm-hmm. Some would give threat level 10, 9, 8, 7, and so on. So when we target these breaking the build program, once they are comfortable with the whole ecosystem, we need to be considerate, as you rightly said, of their available time basically to fix these issues. Developers are not there, just to fix the issues. They are there to deliver business features. So we have to balance this act very, very carefully. So the way we plan to deliver this is, maybe 0 to 6 months, allow them to, scan, get the feedback, and have a clear understanding. But at the end of third month, we basically would like to tell them, hey, your build is going to be broken for, if not all the criticals, maybe some core criticals. For example, SQL injection, maybe process scripting, or any other data injection issues. Mm-hmm. So that gives them enough time basically to look at subset and then focus on fixing it actually. And then eventually after maybe 9 months, from the start, you basically come down and say, hey, no criticals allowed now. You had this much time to fix it. Now, no criticals. And then eventually in the next step, we would say, hey, now put that you're focused on critical issues. Now there are none. Drill down and say no high issues, and so on. So we gave them time enough to get comfortable with the whole ecosystem of DevSecOps tools and scanning, etc. And then we gave them, hey, you start from, the top core and then slowly increase the vulnerabilities so that, they have enough time for both delivering business features as well as fixing the issues.
Yeah, sounds like a good way to roll out. You have to stagger it. You can't just come in and be a bull in a china shop and just sort of break everything. You have to be wise about it. I do feel in kind of the world of open source defenses and these CVEs that another practice that I'm kind of fond of is this separation between a new vulnerability that comes along and a change. This notion of establishing a gate that is more forward-looking. So you have all these vulnerabilities right now, but can I break the build in whatever fashion that, whether it's in a pull request or in a build or whatever it is, only on a new vulnerability that you've added, because you've modified the code changes. So you don't necessarily just go backwards, but it's also, hey, stop the bleeding, kind of draw a line over here and then continue onwards. So I think, Mohan, you've already touched on a bunch of those, but I want to make sure we don't miss them because I liked that framework. You've written about this this notion of the 6 principles of continuous security, and I liked the way it was organized. So maybe what we can do is we can kind of go through them and sort of see, and again, some of them you've already elaborated and talk through them. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I would love to do that, in fact.
Sure.
So this was done for one of the conferences in Europe I presented. So these 6 principles primarily focus towards, give a one clear message that irrespective of the budget that you have, you can have continuous security. So basically, it's feasible for all the organization, irrespective of the size or other constraints. You can still achieve continuous security. So the first principle basically talks about I code, I protect. Which basically means, hey, I'm developing something as a developer. It's my duty to have some kind of security protection developed as part of the whole module development. And when I say that, at the same time, I'm saying I, as a developer, I should not expect another layer or a higher layer, to protect my application. For example, WAF. For example, real-time application self-protection or Rust. So I shouldn't expect these controls to protect me. So as a developer, I should have any code that I put it in production should have both, the business value as well as the security built around it, actually. Mm-hmm. So that's the first principle. The second one is basically, security is everybody's responsibility. So be it a developer, it's not just developer's responsibility. It is the responsibility of the Scrum Master. It's the responsibility of the product owner. It is the responsibility of people in the leadership, as well as people in the marketing area as well. So unless everyone is aware of this, things are very challenging otherwise. So leaving security only to development teams, it's like inviting disaster, because people, the hackers have found different ways to get into the network, through maybe a reception's email, or through board of directors email frauds, actually, or through some other ways, within the ecosystem, either through the application layer or the network layer or the perimeter. So there are multiple ways. Unless everyone takes that responsibility of having enough awareness about security, things would be really difficult.
I like how the that one very much kind of complements the first one. I have our VP Sales has a phrase that says accidents happens at intersections, which is I like that phrase, for the context of security, just as we discussed indeed, everybody has to take this. And just like developers shouldn't expect somebody else to do it, that someone else also shouldn't expect them to just be perfect at what they do, and also their everyone's responsibility. Yeah, love it. Okay, so we've got 1 and 2. Let's go on number 3.
Third. Okay, security through automation. Simplify security through automation. I love this principle because these days everyone expects to deliver whatever, within the shortest time. Like we came from waterfall background to DevOps, or CI/CD or Agile model. So the prime factor here is, everyone is trying to reduce what is going to production. Instead of 10 features, I'm actually developing MVP and then adding 1 or 2 features with every release, or enhancing those features in the in the subsequent releases. So when they are simplifying from the business feature side, I think it is our duty from the security side to simplify whatever security process or tooling or any other procedure through automation. So automation can be brought out at different levels. So I see primarily 3 areas. One is, automation through onboarding of your application in your DevSecOps program. So if it is smoother, people start adopting it quickly. Second thing, the false positive analysis or the triage process. If you're able to automate this through either configuring the tool itself or having a mechanism where they can address these issues, And the third is the metrics generation. So metrics generation, if you are able to automate, that gives them a very good feedback in terms of where they stand from different dimensions of security. So the static analysis of the code that you develop, the code that you use, then the containers that you use, the ecosystem that you use, like Kubernetes or so, as well as the inputs coming from manual pen testing. So if you are able to put these in together, in one single pane of glass, the point is, if you have an integrated dashboard, the developers in one shot get a very quick feedback, and then they can analyze, last release we had this much, whatever vulnerabilities in these areas. Now we are progressing well ahead because it shows the graph is going downwards. But if it is by chance it is going up, there could be multiple reasons. They have increased code, new features, multiple new features. So in that case, they can get a sense, they have to act upon if the trend is going upward direction. So they can think of all this only when they are aware of this. And to be aware, you need to have a single dashboard given to them in a manner in which they can consume it. So yeah, the automation in these three areas is something that I really feel boosts the overall security posture of the applications across the group. Then the fourth one, build ecosystem and build confidence. Yeah, so this I already touched upon. So right. You can build ecosystem around many different areas, because the number of AppSec consultants in your team is not proportional to what you expect, basically, right? So when you are not there in the offline, the developers should be able to get their issues resolved, their issues addressed. So if you are building an ecosystem of documentation through smaller videos about how to use the tool or how to address a particular vulnerability, or like frequently asked questions about, or the false positive list of issues coming from different tools. So this is what I mean by the ecosystem. So the moment I have found personally that say for example in the previous organization we started building the ecosystem, and over a period I observed for almost 2 years, developers, once they start using the whole ecosystem and then the feedback coming from tool, eventually they feel more comfortable with delivering security inside the business features, and they feel more confident about their delivery.
And they grew, right? Like you taught them. They're better at their craft right now. They're able to do it, so they're happy. Like you're giving them something back, right?
Absolutely. In fact, that's quite gratifying, by the way, when you see that confidence in the developers' eyes. More than anything, I would love to see that, in fact.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the next one, get feedback as soon as possible from all sources. Yeah, we touched upon it as well. So, coming from those four areas which I talked about, the static, the dynamic area, container security, and the OSS scanning, I would like to, in fact, try to integrate a few other areas. I mean, I'm planning to do that. One is the WAF rules. If you're able to get WAF rules set per application, you get more visibility in terms of feedback about where and what kind of attacks are happening on your application. So the WAF in consultation with the SOC, the Security Operations Center. So the SOC people would be able to give us some insights in terms of, hey, in this period of time the attacks were primarily focused towards code injection, or in this period of time, hey, the attack was primarily towards network and not on the application layer. So these kind of insights basically over a period helps to grow the understanding how the hackers work and how your application should be secure. So feedback coming from different dimensions actually help developers mature, over a period.
Yeah. No, if what you're doing is any good, you have to be able to measure, right? If you can't measure it, you can't optimize it. You have to improve it.
Absolutely. And the last one is the focus on process improvement, and that is a continuous process. It's not like, hey, you have a DevSecOps program and then you're done. It's never like that. The process is very, very crucial because I have seen, if you focus towards the end product, you would be able to achieve some significant value. But you will not be able to reproduce in a successive, in a longer period, in a strategic manner. But if you focus on improving the process itself, that is making it live, making it adaptable, making prone to improve by itself through some other feedback or other mechanisms. So if you focus on the process, the quality of that end product becomes a secondary factor, and you can predictably make it successful with every delivery if you focus on the process. I like one quote from this lady, Dr. Carol Dweck. Maybe you should have a session with her on growth mindset. Yeah, really. I mean, although her domain was completely different when she talked about the growth mindset, but I love that idea, and I tend to apply that in general process improvement. The process is independent of domain. It can be applied to data science, it can be applied to security, it can be applied to even business processes. So what she says is, you should embrace failures in the journey. That means don't point fingers when something bad happens. Instead you say, hey, this is an opportunity to learn. So embrace failures and think it as a stepping stone and improvise the whole thing. Then inculcate the desire to be challenged. Now this is very important. There is element of culture involved in this, but this culture can be worked upon over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So in certain cultures, hierarchy is very important, where you cannot challenge your superiors.
Yeah, your boss or your manager.
So on. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. But I have found, because I was lucky to work in different cultures so far. US, Australia, Europe, and now in Asia. I found some of the European cultures are really nice in this respect, where they say, hey, I may be the CEO, but if you're a developer, if you have some suggestion, just come and share it with me. And then that feedback goes into improvising the process. So this, the culture should enable being challenged feature in its DNA. And irrespective of where you stand, if you're able to give a good feedback by challenging the whatever existing, I think that's the best thing that can happen to improve process. And she says, believe in process than the end result. That's what I was talking about, So one should not focus on the end result, but if you're able to focus on the process, you are definitely going to end up with a better result, actually.
Like really, really, really good principles. And I think I love how they touch one another, right? But a lot of them are about ownership. A lot of it is around simplification and making it easy. Like if security is too hard, people won't do it. You have to make it easy. And then, I think the whole the last two principles in general, in particular, but also kind of the broader set, a lot of conversation around continuous improvement. You're never done, and that's a good thing. Embrace that you're never done versus being but I guess you also need to have the mindset and the perspective for it, but you also need to staff accordingly. It's not a temporary project that you're going to hire some people for. You have to understand that there are people here that need to be constant sort of service providers and enablers, and be on top of the next technologies, threats, and the next evolutions, and just changes in your own org and what does and doesn't work for it.
Absolutely.
And adapting that.
That's true.
Love the principles, Mohan. Before I let you go here, I like to ask every guest coming on the show, if you have, this is like a wealth of information, but if you have kind of one bit of advice, one kind of either a pet peeve about things you're seeing people do that you think they should just stop doing, or, one thing that if you embrace this, you're sort of leveling up your sort of security foo, whether it's on the dev side or on the security side, organizational, what would that sort of bit of advice be?
I have two figures, man. It's not one, two. So you get a
That's okay. Yeah.
So one thing, the top leaders, maybe it can be, the CIO or CISO or a CTO. From them, if the security message goes down, it is easy to percolate, because you get funding, you get processes resolved, you get mandate, so all these things are very conducive if the message comes from the top. The second aspect, second tip is basically irrespective of which organization that you come from, what domain, you need not be banking or, financial institution to work on security very seriously. You can be coming from any different domain or industry. you can actually achieve continuous security. Only thing is you need to take baby steps, but you need to take it continuously. And you will definitely achieve continuous security for sure.
That's great advice. Get going. Get started. It matters to everybody. Everybody can do it, and you don't have to start from switching from nothing to perfect. Just make a step in the right direction. So Mohan, this was great. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. And I hope you join us for the next one. That's all we have time for today. If you'd like to come on as a guest on this show or get involved in this community, find us at thesecuredeveloper.com or on Twitter @thesecuredev. Visit heavybit.com to find additional episodes, full transcriptions, and other great podcasts. See you next time.